Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to make an apple pie. Well, tomorrow I'm going to make an apple pie. Today I'm going to start making the apple pie and I'm going to tell you a story about this recipe. If you watch this channel, you know that for the most part, most of the stuff I do is dead simple. Really, really simplistic recipes. I don't spend a lot of time doing really frou-frou things. And I certainly have never done, I don't think, any of those recipes that, say 100-hour brownies. It took me 100 hours to make these brownies. I tend to stay away from those types of recipes. A couple weeks ago, I'm out with a bunch of friends that I used to work with in film. And one of them brought up a job that we did probably 20 years ago, where the gag was, it was for a canned soup company, Progresso. Probably shouldn't say who they are, but anyway, it was for a company called Progresso. And the gag was the family sits down to eat their soup for lunch, but there's this incredible apple pie sitting there. And what they really want to do is eat the apple pie, but they have to eat the soup first. They start eating the soup and then they forget about the apple pie because, of course, the soup is so great that the apple pie is, secondary at that point. But the thing is, the director really wanted this apple pie to be an incredible apple pie. We were scheduled for a 2-day shoot in a studio. So they built a kitchen and a dining room in a studio to shoot 2 days to get a 30-second ad of 4 people eating soup dreaming about an apple pie. The apple pie was this thing that was all through pre-production, was this thing, this apple pie. It was determined that we probably needed 48 to 55 or 60 pies so that the pie always looked its best anytime it was in the shot. So we were constantly replacing these pies. So while they're building out the set, there was like a 3 or 4 day set build out and then a pre-light and then the 2 days of shooting. At the beginning of the set build out, the culinary team comes in and starts making this apple pie. Now, the apple pie was never cut open. We never saw the inside of the apple pie, but people were so fixated on this apple pie that it was this whole program to make these apple pies. So in here, I've got about 4.5 or 5 pounds of apples. I'm not terribly particular about the apples I use for apple pie. I got this bag of naturally imperfect apples, 6 pounds of apples for $1. They are the runts, the ones that are misshapen or don't have the right color. Anyway, I figured 6 pounds of apples for $1 is a good deal. I took about 4.5 or 5 pounds, peeled, cored, and sliced them up, and I left them pretty chunky. So the pieces of apple are pretty chunky. Anyway, so the culinary team comes in to start making these pies. Never going to be cut open, never going to be eaten on camera. The family that's eating the soup is never actually going to interact with the pie. It's just going to sit there. They peeled hundreds of pounds of apples and put them in giant tubs like this, like these restaurant tubs, and macerated them for about 48 hours. Before roasting them and then putting them in the pie and then baking them. I'm going to macerate these today for about 24 hours and then we'll come back and we'll make the pie tomorrow. So 4.5, 5 pounds of apples, peeled, cored, and sliced up. Cinnamon, in goes the cinnamon. Next in, some brown sugar and a couple of glugs of maple syrup. And I'm using a dark maple syrup. I tend to think that the dark maple syrups have the best flavor in all uses. Baking, cooking, pancakes or waffles, I always use a really dark maple syrup. So that's it. I'm just going to mix this up and stick it in the fridge. And over the 24 hours, I will probably stir it 2 or 3 times while it's in the fridge. The sugar will start to break down the apples and pull all of the apple juice out of the apples. And so here's the thing. At the end of the shoot, at the end of the second day, I grabbed one of those apple pies because they hadn't been cut into, and I got one that hadn't gone out to set. Grabbed it, brought it home, ate it. Thought it was a great apple pie. But I got to tell you, in my brain, I never really thought that it was worth the extra time to make it over just making a regular apple pie. here we are 20 years later, and I think I'm going to put it to the test. See you tomorrow. Okay, so 48 hours have gone by. Life intervenes, and I did not get back out here yesterday to finish shooting this pie. Doesn't matter. 48 hours are going to be fine. 36, 72. I don't think it really matters. You could probably leave these in the fridge for 4 or 5 days before you come back to them. Next step, we're going to roast the apples. So now that sugar mixture has pulled a lot of the water out of the apples. So roasting them is the next step. And I'm going to spread the apple pieces into like a single-ish layer on a baking sheet. Piece of parchment paper on here because it will get sticky and be really hard to clean off this baking tray. And don't get overly pedantic about single layer. Do your best. It's going to be hard. There's enough apples here that it pretty much covers the tray completely. We're going to stick them in the oven, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, half an hour or so, maybe at the 15-minute point. Give the tray a shake or try to flip them over if you want to. Not a huge deal. This baking step is going to caramelize some of the sugars and dry out the apples a little bit before they go in the pie. Now, all of this liquid, I'm going to put it in a little pot and I'm going to simmer it down to kind of a thick-ish syrup. Okay, the liquid is bubbling down here, boiling down into a syrup. The apples have been out of the oven. They are cooled to room temperature. Bottom crust is rolled out. It's in the fridge. So I'm going to roll out the top crust at this point. The crust is something that a lot of people fear when they're making pies, and they go out and they buy a crust at the grocery store. No shame in that. Go right ahead, buy the crust at the grocery store. I want to tell you, though, that you shouldn't fear pie crust. There's a learning curve. You do need to fail 2 or 3 times. Failure is part of learning. Failure is part of growing as a human. You have to fail. I fail all the time, and you often see it right here in the videos. So don't fear failure. And I'm going to tell you, even when you fail miserably and you think it's just so bad, your pie crust is going to be better than the pie crust you buy at the grocery store. Hands down, completely true. I know a lot of people try to make this into some mysterious thing. I've got a separate video where I make pie crust. You put it into a food processor. It's no big deal. Simple ingredients, simple procedure. The method is super simple. Don't fear it. Okay, my next question is, as a pie lover, do you like a lattice top or a solid top? For me, purely on the visual, I prefer a lattice top. But if I'm eating the pie, I prefer a solid top because I really love pie crust. Okay, so don't fear the pie dough. Put the flour on your bench. Don't be afraid to flip it over. Don't be afraid to move it around. It's very resilient. I have a French rolling pin that's tapered towards the ends. So it's thick in the middle but tapered off to the ends, and you can turn it like this and really manipulate the dough. I used to be quite good at it, but I haven't made too many pies lately. I guess I'm going to have to change that. Okay, I think that's almost good enough. So you can kind of bring it around the edge. Okay, time for assembly. I'm just going to take the top crust and pull it out of the way. No big deal. Bench scraper. Just get rid of some of the flour. Don't need all that flour everywhere. And bottom crust, it's in a pie tin, so an aluminum tin. For a long time, I used what my grandmother used, the glass pie dishes, the Pyrex glass pie dishes. I'm sure everybody knows what those are. And then I had this epiphany. I had a pie in a pie tin, and it was so much better. The bottom crust was so much better, and it was cooked in an oven with a pizza stone or a stone base. So you put the tin directly on the stone, and you get a really nice bottom crust. This is some minute tapioca, maybe a teaspoon worth. And in go the roasted apples. Don't be afraid to get in there with your fingers and arrange them. Oh, that's good. Okay. So roasting the apple, macerating the apple, we got rid of a lot of the moisture. Roasting it has firmed them up and caramelized some of the flavors. The apples aren't going to break down in this pie. That's the theory. Okay, so some butter, dot the butter on around it. Just some pieces here and there. That should be good. And then we've got that syrup. So this deep, intense apple flavor. All of the liquid that came out of those apples has been reduced in here with the brown sugar and the maple syrup. The flavor's just absolutely incredible. Really good. Okay, so this is just an egg wash. This is an egg beat up with a fork and a little bit of milk. And I'm just going to rub around the edge of the pie. And this just helps everything stick together for the next step, which is bringing in the lid. All right, so fold that back, lift it up, lift it over, no big deal. There we go. So I just crimp around the edges with my thumbs and my finger, and I leave lots of extra dough. I am less concerned about having a really pretty pie to win the pie contest at the county fair, and I'd rather have something that I enjoy eating. So I leave it thick, I leave lots of it, and it looks really rustic, I like to say. But if you want to be super careful and make it look, like it came out of a factory, go right ahead. Use a fork, cut some off, keep it nice and simple, keep it clean. Now I'm just brushing the outside again with this egg wash, and I'm going to sprinkle some sugar on. I'm also going to cut a couple of holes to let the steam out. There won't be much steam though, because of the way we treated the apples. Steam will be minimal, so a couple of slits. Sprinkle some sugar on top. And into the oven. 375 for, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. Keep an eye on it. If it starts to brown too much around the edge, just go around and put a little bit of a tinfoil ring on it. Really easy. Hey, Jules.
I feel like I'm sneaking in. Hey, Glenn, I didn't want to startle you. Hey, friends. You were thinking really hard there.
I really hate making that first cut and trying to get that first piece out. Can I get it out? And then you wonder, is the pie...
Oh, looks pretty good.
Ooh. Okay, so the first one's messy, like the first one often is.
Did you roll this?
Because I like thick crust around the edge.
Yes, I do like the...
So so I let it hang over, and then I rolled it up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that.
So I could get maximum
crust.
Maximum crust. Okay. Dig in, Jules.
Let's start with the apple. That's a good apple pie. That's some solid apple. Yes, you went with a solid apple. versus a mushy apple.
It's the method.
Uh-huh.
It's more about the method than the apple. I used Fuji's, which is a good baking apple to begin with. But the way that they were macerated for 48 hours and then roasted.
Oh, that's what's been going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then roasted in the oven for. That's what keeps that texture.
So they were all pre-cooked, for lack of a better word?
It was cooked before it ever went in the pie. Yeah.
Oh, you totally scooped in that.
And then so all the liquid that came out of the maceration, I boiled that down into a syrup and then poured it on.
That's pretty good. I mean, it takes a long time. What's the benefit other than the time? I mean, clearly the apple stays all solid. It doesn't get mushy. It's got a lovely flavor.
Yeah.
Why were they using it? Just because mass production of them, or?
Because the director wanted the pie to be the star. Even though we weren't advertising the pie had to be the star.
Struggling with the crust.
Because it was the whole gag. Right? You know how that goes.
Directors.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I work with one a lot.
Yeah. I mean, anyway. So, I mean, as much as it took 48 hours to get the apples to the point where we put them in the pie, that's just fridge time. If you've got space in your fridge, it's just fridge time. You don't really have to think about it.
Will it work for other fruits? Or is it strictly this type, like the pears, apples, that style of fruit?
Yes. I would think that you could probably do blueberries and cherries this way. Yeah. We've done a roasted cherry pie.
I try to think deeply about.
I'm pretty sure I did or was it a roasted cherry ice cream? I don't know. 17 years of doing this. It's all kind of mashed
There's some
together.
food. There's some food in there.
We've made some stuff. Anyway, this is a great pie.
I agree.
Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.